The story begins as we see a man standing in front of a dragon. As the dragon tries to attack him, he's able to obliterate it with a single touch, but he still seeks to become stronger. We then meet a young boy named Ragnar fighting another dragon, but he seems distracted during the battle. The dragon moves towards him quickly, but a girl named Leo comes to his rescue. Leo defeats the dragon with a single strike and advises Ragnar to stay more alert. He thanks her and she reminds him to give her head pats. We learn that dragons have long been causing trouble for humans. There are two ways to kill a dragon. The first method is by stabbing it with a silver sword, which emits silverine, which freezes the dragon's blood, and the second way is by letting it burn in sunlight. The next day, Ragnar and Leo watch the dragon's body burn in the sunlight. Leo takes the dragon's heart and stabs it with a silver dart. The heart is frozen, and she puts it in a bag as proof of their successful mission. On their way back to the city, the villagers gossip about the scar on Leo's face, but they admire her for being a skilled dragon hunter, even though she's only 12 years old. When they reach the Guildhall, we learn that dragon hunters are like soldiers who take quests, and they get paid for completing them. Leo is the youngest and most powerful dragon hunter in Ranbara City, having defeated more dragons than anyone else. Ragnar collects their payment and gives it to Leo, thinking that she has the potential to become even stronger as she gets older. The two have dinner together, and Leo asks Ragnar if she can have some meat, so Ragnar promises to make her some later. This gets her excited, and Ragnar thinks about how the other villagers envy Leo's ability, but he sees her as his hero. He takes a photograph of her, and they enjoy their moment together. A man sitting next to them interrupts and insults Ragnar for leeching on Leo, but both Leo and Ragnar have no idea who the man is. This annoys the man, and he yells at Leo, telling her that he is Sykes, the dragon hunter with the second highest number of dragon kills after her. Leo still doesn't recognize him, and this further annoys him, but he calms himself down. He walks over to Ragnar and tells them that he's just a burden to Leo, because he has nothing to offer her aside from being her personal butler. Leo gets annoyed, so she draws her sword at him, dropping him in the process. She wonders why he became a dragon hunter, because most are just after fame and fortune, but she reveals she's there to become the strongest. Dragons are considered the strongest monsters, which is why she goes after them, hoping to even fight the dragon god to prove she's the strongest. She then asks who will follow her in fulfilling this quest, and only Ragnar is brave enough to raise his hand. After that, Leo and Ragnar both leave the diner, with Ragnar reminding Leo to brush her teeth before going to bed. After watching her sleep, he starts to train outside while thinking to himself that he definitely needs to get stronger in order to protect Leo. While training, the cloaked man mysteriously appears behind him, telling him that he can't achieve his goal and that he will lose Leo. Ragnar sees a vision of Leo dying and it strikes fear throughout his body. He cries as he wonders if it was just a dream or if it's a prophecy. The following day, while walking home together, Leo asks Ragnar why he didn't just buy the meat for her instead of cooking it himself. So Ragnar explains that the meat served at the diner has little to no vegetables, which are essential for her health. Later that night, after dinner, he puts her to sleep, but he is still bothered about his vision. The following day at the Guildhall, the dragon hunters complain because there aren't any quests being posted, so Leo suggests that they go outside. She tells Ragnar that she has noticed that there have been few dragons lately, but Ragnar doesn't seem too interested, as he continues pondering over the vision he saw, and he tells her that her hair is getting long, so it's time to trim it. Later that night, he once again dreams about Leo dying, causing him to wake up crying and scared. The following day while training, Ragnar continues to hear the man's voice ringing in his head, reminding him that he will lose Leo. He becomes engulfed with rage, and he starts striking the tree next to him. The scene shifts to Sykes and other dragon hunters, discussing the possible cause of the lack of quests. It's revealed that the dragons are actually migrating to the east. Sykes expresses his surprise, because in the east lies Donapir, a kingdom that has not been attacked by a dragon for over a decade. Leo and Ragnar sit at the bar in the diner. She tells Ragnar that when they go to Donapir, they have to visit a famous pastry shop there. Leo notices how absent-minded Ragnar seems. She checks his eyes and notices that he has bags under them. She also notices that his palm is unusually rough, which indicates that he has been training too hard. He asks her what he can do for her aside from just taking care of her. Leo tells him what she thought about him when they first met, saying he has the potential to be as strong or even stronger than her. She says this with confidence, and she promises to protect him until that day comes. We learn more about Ragnar's past. His parents were eaten by dragons when he was little, so his relatives took him in, but they also ended up getting eaten. He gets bought by a rich man, but his mansion gets burnt to the ground by a dragon. Ragnar is blamed for all of this, and some men beat him while calling him cursed, because the dragons seem to follow him around. Shortly after that, Leo appears before him, and she asks him to help her hunt dragons. He quickly tries to warn her to stay away from him, but she assures him that she's strong and won't die easily. They are attacked by a dragon shortly after, but she takes it down with a single swing of her blade. Leo asks him if he still thinks he's cursed, and he declares he will stay by her side until the day he dies. The following day, a massive quest is posted, which attracts the attention of all the dragon hunters. Leo asks Sykes what's going on. He explains that a horde of dragons attacked Donapir, and a quest was sent to dragon hunters requesting for their help. But it seems to make Ragnar terrified, and Leo wonders why he's so stunned. When they arrive at Donapir, the city is on fire and a horde of dragons cause havoc and destruction. Ragnar is engulfed in fear, and he pulls Leo's clothes, telling her that they need to retreat or she will die. But she assures him that she will survive, and she jumps in to join the battle. A man covered in blood emerges from the flames. The dragon hunters nearby quickly check to see if he's okay. But the blood suddenly turns into blades, instantly killing the hunters. Ragnar makes up his mind not to let Leo die like this, so he also runs to the battlefield. He approaches the mysterious man from behind. He realizes that the man is similar to the one that kills Leo in his visions. This increases his fear, but he controls it and makes up his mind to protect Leo. Sykes recognizes the man as a superior dragon and starts to panic as he approaches. Ragnar launches a surprise attack from behind, but ends up breaking his sword. The man uses flames to push Ragnar into a nearby river, and Leo tells Sykes to rescue him while she faces the man. As Ragnar sinks to the bottom of the river, the man who has been appearing to him tells him his future. He explains that if Leo dies in this battle, he will be filled with hatred and vengeance against the dragons. This will cause him to train to his limits, and he will even break through them every time. He will find new companions in battle, but will end up losing every single one of them. His pain will only further intensify his hunger to train harder and break the limits of his limits. We learn that the man is a future version of Ragnar. He tells Ragnar that he idolized Leo instead of becoming stronger himself. He explains how powerful he has become, but there's no one left for him to protect with all his powers. Ragnar runs to him, and he begs him to give him the power to protect Leo. His future self pushes him and stabs him in the heart. The sword begins to freeze him from inside, and the memories from his future self start to flow into him. Back in the real world, Ragnar screams in pain. His future self tells him that he will give him his power to save Leo, but it will come at a cost. Ragnar doesn't mind the price, and he accepts the power without even hearing the cost. The scene shifts to Leo, fighting against the superior dragon. She appears tired, and she asks the man if he's the dragon god, because he possesses enormous strength. But this annoys the man, and he attacks Leo for comparing him to his god. He introduces himself as Grimwelt, the 10th seed of the Blood of the Wing, and he notes that he is the lowest ranked out of all the superior dragons. He explains that his god loves the cakes from the famous pastry shop in Donapir. But the shop went out of business after it was robbed. This annoyed their god, so he ordered them to destroy the kingdom. He explains to Leo that this wasn't a real battle because dragon hunters are no threat to them. He is about to kill her, but he suddenly senses something behind him. We see Ragnar slowly approaching him. There are dragons that try to attack him, but he freezes them with a single touch. As he approaches Grimwelt, it's revealed that over his time fighting with dragons, his future self was able to fuse himself with his silver sword, and his body became a weapon capable of producing Silverine. After countless years of practicing how to control the Silverine in his body, he perfected it and developed a powerful technique known as the Silverine Battle Arts. As Ragnar touches Grimwelt, his body begins to freeze, and he starts being engulfed with fear. He is reminded of the same aura he gets from the Dragon Monarchs, the leaders who are appointed by their god. He gets annoyed at himself for fearing a mere human, so he transforms into his full dragon form, preparing to fight with his true power. But Ragna is able to turn him to ice with his touch, and he shatters him into pieces. After the dust settles, Ragna catches his breath. When he turns around and sees that Leo is still alive, he runs towards her in tears and hugs her. Leo pets him, saying she knows that he worked hard to attain his level of strength. Ragna tells her that he's not the one who worked for this power, but the person who worked for it is now gone. He knows how much his future self missed Leo, and Leo thanks him for saving her. Ragna's future self and a mysterious woman are seen in another dimension. We learn that he has died, as the woman reminds him of the price that must be paid. She notes that his past self also won't be able to live for long due to the intense power that he received, but she hopes that their past selves fulfill their dream of creating a world without dragons. Back in the real world, 6 cities in the kingdom have been destroyed. When Ragna wakes up, he's still so excited to see Leo alive, and he starts crying. Sykes enters the room and wonders why he's crying like a child. Ragna explains that the dragons treat their god's word as law. Since the god ordered them to destroy the kingdom, they won't stop until they fulfill his wish. So he tells them that the only solution is to get out of the kingdom. Sykes wonders what he's done with the real Ragna, because the Ragna that he knows isn't as smart or as strong as him. He asks him who he is, but Ragna just falls asleep. Leo thinks his secret training must have made him this strong, but the power is draining him and making him unstable. Ragna continues to call Leo in his sleep, while Leo continues to assure him that she's right beside him, but she worries that with his current strength, he might not need her anymore. Suddenly, Leo and Sykes feel the earth beneath them tremble. They rush towards the window to see what's happening, and they discover that the forest on the outskirts of the kingdom is approaching them. Sykes rushes to announce to the dragon hunters that the forest is attacking them, and Leo rushes out to defend the kingdom. Meanwhile in the forest, we see that a superior dragon named Temru is behind the attack. He has a chef that brings him food, and they nervously wait to see his reactions. He turns out to be delighted by the dish, and the chef is relieved, but Temru notes that it still isn't as good as human meat, so he bites down on the man. He then grabs the 2 women, and he eats them as well. He turns his attention to the last girl, noting that since their god has commanded them, he is free to eat every person in the country. Meanwhile, we see Sykes running through the kingdom as he slashes through the tree roots. He notices that they freeze, so he realizes that a dragon is behind the attack. Leo also cuts down the roots, but she notes that there are just too many. She suddenly sees that Ragna was captured, so she rushes to save him. There are tree roots that are about to stab her, but Ragna suddenly awakens as he freezes all the roots in the area. He senses the presence of the dragon, and he instantly heads over. Leo tries to keep up with him, but he just leaves her behind. He arrives at the dragon's lair, instantly taking it out with a kick. He notes that he's cursed, and he has seen the future where everyone close to him gets killed by dragons. He wonders what he can do to avoid losing everyone, and he comes to the conclusion that he must wipe out all the dragons. He wonders how he can succeed, when even his future self wasn't able to do it. At that moment, the girl beside him wonders if he's okay, and Ragna is surprised to see her, recognizing her as Crimson. She doesn't know what he's talking about, but Ragna tells her his plan to slay all the dragons, asking her to help him. The girl tells him he has mistaken her for someone else, so she starts introducing herself, but Ragna already knows her name is Eliza, and she's a 14-year-old boy from a farming village, which was attacked by a dragon. He knows that this is just her cover story, as he reveals he has met her future self. But the girl still says she doesn't know what he's talking about, saying her name is actually Elise. Ragna claims she is actually Crimson, the former dragon monarch of the winged bloodline, but she was branded a traitor after trying to kill the dragon god. We learn that she was the one who linked the future and the present, and the one who allowed Ragna's future self to give him his power. He isn't sure why, but he knows her goal is to wipe out all dragons, including herself. He tells her they need to work together to achieve the goal of their future selves. The girl is about to take his hand, but she suddenly slaps him instead, insulted that he called him a man as well as a dragon. Leo catches up to them, wondering if the fight is already over, but the dragon suddenly reappears. It prepares to devour them, but Ragna throws an orb as he gets away with Leo. It turns out to be a bomb, and the dragon explodes with ice. Leo is amazed by how strong he's become, but Ragna asks her for a favor, asking her to help lead the remaining people across the border, telling her he plans to stay behind. Leo refuses to leave him, insisting that they stick together. He tells her it will be dangerous if she stays, but she thinks that it's just a normal part of being a dragon hunter. However, he tells her that she's just too weak and that she'll die if she stays with him. Leo is devastated hearing this, and she even swings her sword at him, but he stops it with a single finger and he knocks her out. When she wakes up, she finds herself being carried by Sykes, and we see they are with others who are headed to the border. In a flashback, we see Leo telling Ragna how she wants to become the strongest. She wonders what kind of dream he has, but he says he's happy as long as he can be with her, so she can't understand why he would leave her. Elise wonders if Ragna is really okay leaving Leo, but he says he can only be with people that he doesn't care about, or people that won't die. Elise prepares to leave, but Ragna keeps telling her to join him. She gets annoyed at him, saying that she doesn't know a Crimson, and points out that if she were a dragon, she wouldn't be able to be out in the sunlight. Ragna knows that her powers are currently sealed, but it also lets her walk in the sun. She points out how she's clearly a girl, but Ragna knows that she has the power to freely change her age and gender. Elise walks away in frustration, but Ragna catches up to her, saying he knows how to do all sorts of things like cooking and cleaning, since he used to take care of Leo. He offers to take care of her if she agrees to team up with him, but she just thinks he's a weirdo. She turns him down, but Ragna suddenly collapses with a heavy fever. We see the future Ragna on the day he first met Crimson. She's impressed by his power, but when she introduces herself as a dragon monarch, Ragna instantly kills her. However, she just reappears, telling him they should join forces. He kills her again, but she just reappears, telling him she can use his powers more effectively than himself. Back in the present, Ragna wakes up, and we see that Elise took care of him. We learn that while he was unconscious, Elise examined his body, finding the Silverine which he can generate, and his insane level of potential. She gets excited thinking about killing dragons with him, but they suddenly notice a horde of dragons flying towards the border. Elise thinks that they must be going after all the other people, so Ragna quickly grabs her, and he rushes after them. Ragna is prepared to take orders from her, but she still insists that she isn't Crimson, but she does tell him to kill all the dragons. He kicks one of the dragons out of the sky, and the others land to confront him. Using his Silverine technique, he creates multiple swords, and he launches them at a dragon, instantly freezing it. Elise catches one of the swords, and she examines it. She senses that it's potent enough that even a second-rate dragon hunter could use it to kill a superior dragon. She thinks about if they use these swords to equip a whole army, and she finally sees Ragna's value. She suddenly vomits up a bunch of slime, and it jumps onto the remaining dragons, and it starts absorbing their bodies. She releases her seal as she transforms and reveals that she really is Crimson. Ragna is happy to see this form, but she tells him she will only work with him if he drinks her poison. She explains that it takes effect if he rebels against her, but Ragna just drinks it without any hesitation. She doesn't think he has the making of a hero, but says he shows promise as a tool. She plans to use him to defeat the 6 dragon monarchs, as well as the dragon god, and after everything is settled, she plans for him to finish her as well. As they form their partnership, Crimson's slime takes on a human form and accuses Ragna of being disrespectful towards his master. Ragna is happy to see him, but Slime notes it's their first time meeting, telling Ragna he needs to show him respect as well. Crimson breaks up the commotion, and she asks Ragna about what happens in the future. But he isn't able to tell her anything, and she starts to lose faith in him. He says that his memories are vague, and he needs specific triggers for him to remember them. Crimson begins to doubt his capabilities, but he assures her that she can rely on his power, because his Silverine battle arts are in his body rather than his mind. We see a group of dragon hunters as they get attacked by dragons, and they try to help the other people escape, but they start to get overwhelmed. A truck suddenly arrives, and Ragna jumps out, taking out the dragons. He manages to save everyone, but Crimson decides to use them to test his powers. She introduces him as Ragna the Reaper, saying he has killed a number of superior dragons, but the people have never heard of him. She introduces herself as a mage, knowing that most magic users are superior dragons. She knows magic is rare among humans, so most people have never seen it, and this makes it easier for her to trick them. She explains her powers by calling it magic, telling them slime is just a pet she summoned with magic, and she starts to brainwash them, making them chant that magic is awesome. The dragon hunter, Michael, approaches Ragna and Crimson, asking for their help to slay a dragon, because he thinks that they are the only ones who can take it down. He recalls a massive tornado in the city, and he saw a man at its center. Crimson thinks that the man is Tempest, a powerful dragon who cloaks himself in wind. Ragna is about to hunt the dragon, but he is stopped by Crimson, and he collapses to the ground due to fatigue, because he has been pushing himself too hard, and Crimson thinks that he might not be able to move for days. But she tells him to leave it to her, saying she will use the people. Crimson informs everyone that the Dragon Reaper is unable to move, and the survivors offer to pay them with everything they have, but she declines the offer, as she intends to use them to fight. She tries agitating them, reminding them of the people they left behind, as she describes the suffering they went through, and the aftermath of their death. The survivors give in, as they acknowledge that they are helpless, and she offers them help by lending them the Reaper sword, saying it will grant them the power to defeat the dragons, but says she can't guarantee their survival. The men end up accepting the sword, and she admires their fighting spirit. Crimson and the dragon hunters arrive at the ruins of a city, and she manifests a magic key, using it to open a certain door, which leads to a mysterious armory filled with modern weapons. Ragna produces Silverine ammunitions, while the men train with the guns. He assures Crimson that he's not upset with her, knowing she intends to lead them to victory. But he is upset that he can't get up yet, and that he's now called the Reaper by the survivors. He tells her that he doesn't want them to be near him, because they might end up dying. She tells him that this is why he abandoned Leo, and he acknowledges this, saying he was afraid of losing her right before his eyes. Crimson suggests he should hold her captive, offering to open a space in the armory where they can lock her up. After having her fun teasing and beating Ragna, she assures him that she'll crush Tempest. She tells him that he's not cursed, and she demonstrates a real curse by taking her own life, only for her to reappear. Slime arrives after spying on the town, and she rewards him by giving him her corpse. Slime takes on the shape of the town, with the vortex in the middle, noting that there are women floating with their limbs torn off. She knows that Tempest will use the women to entertain himself, thinking it will distract him for a while, so she decides not to tell the others about this. Crimson rallies the dragon hunters, and she delivers a speech, inspiring them to take on the dragons. Tempest acknowledges their arrival, as we see them approaching the city. Crimson taunts him through a megaphone, causing him to become upset, so he starts chasing after them. Michael starts to lose his confidence looking at the tornado, thinking they aren't strong enough to take it on. But he strengthens his resolve, telling his men that they can win. Tempest continues to give chase, and it's revealed that Crimson plans to expose him to the sunlight to reduce his powers. Michael opens fire, and the bullets freeze the wind. We learn that Silverine doesn't freeze the dragon's blood, but it freezes the magic within, and since the wind is controlled by magic, the bullets can freeze it. Tempest thinks that they're using silver bullets, but the bullets are just ordinary lead bullets that contain Ragna's Silverine. He is amused by their tactic and is confident with his powers. But the men open fire, and this time, they're using special bullets infused by Ragna's Silverine. The difference in power shows as the tornado is shaken up, but it wasn't enough to destroy it. Tempest becomes angry, and the tornado speeds up, but they continue to shoot, further angering him, so he increases his power output. But in his anger, he failed to notice the wall covered in Silverine battle arts, and he crashes into it, destroying the tornado. Slime grabs him in midair and throws him to a Silverine spear, stabbing him through the heart. With his defenses down, he begins to burn in the sunlight. Slime begins to celebrate, but the ground lifts them off and sends them crashing, giving Tempest a chance to recover. But as he is about to remove the spear, he gets hit by the truck, and the dragon hunters continue to open fire on him. We learn that if Tempest had taken on his dragon form, he would have gained the power to summon 8 tornadoes simultaneously, and Crimson's plan would have fallen apart. But due to his arrogance, he wasn't able to predict that he could be defeated so easily, and a dragon hunter delivers the finishing blow, slicing off his head. Ragnar recalls the conversation he had with Crimson from the night before, where she told him that choosing her over Leo was the right choice. He notes that Crimson probably didn't take the battle seriously, seeing it as a chance to conduct an experiment on him. As the men celebrate in the distance, Crimson is amused by the sight of Tempest burning in the sun. Ragnar is reminded of how dangerous she is, as he remembers that he needs to hunt her down after all the dragons have been defeated. They gather the survivors, giving them everything they need to survive, as Crimson hopes that they can escape the country. They appreciate her help, but she erases their memories, making them forget about her. They thank Ragnar instead, but he insists that it was a team effort, saying it wouldn't have been possible without them, and they bid each other farewell. Ragnar and Crimson listen to the news, and they hear an announcement from the royal army, informing them about a large-scale dragon attack near the border and ordering the civilians to evacuate. Ragnar and Crimson know it's a trap, and that the announcer is trying to herd the citizens into the capital, so they decide to go there as well. 5 days earlier, the king learns how Donapir was destroyed by a lightning storm, and dragons wiped out all the soldiers stationed there. The king orders his men to gather the troops stationed in the other areas, and recruit dragon hunters into their army, ordering them to avoid superior dragons. This incident reminds the king of what happened 20 years ago, when Donapir was attacked by the Garnesian army, but they were saved when dragons arrived to destroy the army with lightning, so the king wonders why they are now being attacked. We learn that a barrier is protecting the capital, but he knows that superior dragons are extremely powerful. He is suddenly visited by an angel, who introduces herself as Ultimacia, the winged monarch, apologizing for the sudden intrusion. The king wonders how she passed through the barrier, which works by emitting sunlight accumulated during the day at nighttime to keep the dragons away. She assures the king that the barrier is fully functional, and she's just bearing the heat to talk to him. The king is bewildered by this, but notes that Ultimacia has no record of publicly taking action. She assures him that his men are safe, and she merely stopped time so they can talk in private. She apologizes to the king, and shows her subordinate's head, saying she never intended to attack Donapir, so she punished her subordinate, Kamui, for acting on his own. The king is confused, but he notices that even though time is frozen, he can still move, and that there's a possibility to attack Ultimacia. But he decides against this, knowing his kingdom may be destroyed in retaliation. He accepts her apology, but she reveals that she wanted the people of Donapir to have a tranquil death, and the king is confused to hear this. She explains that God ordered the country to be destroyed, so she made preparations to accomplish this goal, but she was hindered when her subordinate destroyed Donapir. She knows that people are seeking refuge, saying she can't let them leave, so she ordered her men to attack the towns near the country's border, so that they won't be able to escape. The king begs her to order her men to stop, but she tells him that she can't, saying the battle is going to be a one-sided bloodbath. The king is left with no choice but to kill her, so he prepares to attack her with his ring. We see all the power in the capital being drained, as the barrier protecting the capital is converted into a weapon. He aims at Ultimacia, intending to kill her, but her subordinate Borg attacks him. She reminds Borg that he was not supposed to kill the king, but he assures her that the king is still alive. She reverses time, restoring the king's body, and she apologizes to the king for Borg's action. The king is afraid, because he still remembers what happened, so he realizes that he has no chance against them. She tells him that there is no way for the people in his country to escape their deaths, because God wants them dead. She asks the king for his cooperation to help ensure that his people die without suffering, and he ends up agreeing to this. Back in the present, the civilians evacuate to the royal capital, and the king's advisor reveals that there are too many refugees, saying it won't be wise to accept more. But the king tells him not to think about the future, as Kamui mocks him, saying he has no guts. Ultimacia tells him that their plan has begun, so they will be able to give the humans a peaceful death in 10 days. But she mentions that there is a problem, because one of her subordinates was killed by Princess Starlia, and 3 superior dragons were eliminated by an unknown force. She blames Kamui for their deaths, saying she won't forgive his recklessness, but he wants to make it up to her, so she returns his heart, telling him that his punishment has been suspended, and she orders him to help deal with the situation. We see a scene from Ragnar's future, as he is defeated by the superior dragons. They discuss what to do with him, thinking they should eliminate him. He feels pathetic, wondering why he's still alive, as he thinks about giving up. But Kamui knows that he wants to die, so he decides against killing him because he wants Ragna's suffering to continue. He mocks the others for wanting to give Ragna a merciful death, asking them if they have any objections, but Ultimacia strikes him down, saying she hates people who destroy the peace. She reveals that she wants to welcome Ragna into the bloodline, and she approaches him, knowing she is responsible for his country's destruction. But she thinks that his survival is the will of God, thinking he is amazing for managing to stay alive. He doesn't understand what she's saying, so her subordinate, Zora, explains that he is about to become a superior dragon. We learn that superior dragons were once humans, but they transformed after receiving blood from Ultimacia, so they think that Ragna should be happy because he is about to evolve into a greater being. But he blames the dragons for killing everyone, so he wants to have his revenge. Zora tells him that his hatred will disappear after he transforms, and Ultimacia summons a blood sword, telling Ragna that she will use it to stab his heart. She assures him that he won't lose himself, telling him that his perspective is about to change as he starts screaming in agony. Back in the present, we see Ragna and Crimson riding a train, as Crimson wonders if he remembered something important. He thinks that Ultimacia is worse than Crimson, seeing her behavior as disgusting because she is so kind, and yet she is responsible for killing everyone, so he is determined to hunt her down. Crimson notes that Ragna still can't use his full power, so he will need years of preparation to defeat Ultimacia. But she thinks that Ultimacia has already received news of their exploits, so her strongest subordinate Kamui must be on his way to investigate. She thinks that they may be able to deal with Ultimacia while he's away, seeing it as a chance to do an experiment which will decide their future. Meanwhile, Ultimacia recalls that the country no longer exists in God's mind, so she sees it as her duty to erase it from existence. She mourns her fallen comrades, thinking they have failed God, and she wants to pay tribute to them by destroying the country. Ragna and Crimson arrive at the royal capital, as Crimson reveals that they are in the Commerce District, and they need to make their way to the Old District. She wants to hide her real identity, telling her companions not to call her by her name, but she notices that Ragna is sick, as he reveals that he's really bad with crowds. She tells him to get used to it, asking him if he wants to stop the hunt, but he tells her that he is willing to sacrifice everything to defeat the dragons. They reach the Old District, and Crimson says that she will start making preparations for her plan. She tells Ragna to keep a low profile, advising him not to mention the enemy's name and to avoid talking to anyone. As she walks away, she wonders why there aren't enough people, because millions of refugees should be crowding the capital. She thinks that their numbers are already decreasing and that people are starting to disappear in the main district. The superior dragon Nebulem mentions that the disposal for the day is finished, saying they just need to wait until night time. He tells Borg that Ultimacia is inspecting the refugees' conditions in the Old District, and Borg becomes upset, reminding him that it is their duty to look after her. Meanwhile, we see the Lieutenant General Rowan as he enjoys his time with the ladies. Crimson approaches him, and he recognizes her as his master. But she hits him, reminding him that she ordered him to gather intel while disguised as a high-ranking official, but he is wasting his time with the ladies. We learn that he is a golem, and her servant Chimera joins them, ready to receive orders from her. She tells Chimera to make Ultimacia clash with Ragna, thinking they can defeat her. A crowd gathers before the soldiers, who release the curtains, revealing the corpses of dragons. A soldier tells them that their country is being attacked by dragons, but he tells them not to worry because the royal army is winning against the dragons. He promises the people that they will be able to return to a peaceful life, and they are happy to hear this, praising the royal family. But Ragna knows that this is a trap, so he starts walking away. He walks past Ultimacia, and he immediately recognizes her, so he becomes scared. He recalls that Crimson advised him not to go after her alone, but he thinks about taking her out. She approaches him, wondering if he is unwell, so he panics, not knowing what to do next. Crimson reveals that she plans to use Ragna to defeat Ultimacia, asking her servants to cooperate with her plan. But Golem thinks they can't defeat Ultimacia because she has the power to manipulate time, thinking Ragna isn't strong enough to defeat her. Chimera calls him a coward, saying they don't need his help, but he asks her a simple math problem and she struggles to solve it, so he insults her, telling her that even a kid can solve it. He thinks that she can't serve Crimson with her low intelligence, but Crimson tells him to stop, reminding him that she created them, so they shouldn't insult each other. He shows them a recording of when Ultimacia reversed time, and Crimson admits that her power is impressive, but she knows that it isn't invincible. Meanwhile, Kamui attacks Michael's group, saying he can't believe that they defeated Tempest. Michael realizes that he is stronger than Tempest, and he asks them about their silver swords, preparing to take them out. We return to Ragna, as Ultimacia wonders what's wrong with him. Slime tells her to stay away from Ragna, because the crowd makes him sick, and he chooses not to fight her, telling her not to worry about him. She apologizes for jumping to conclusions, as he thinks that he made the right decision, because he shouldn't act on his own. Slime tells her that she doesn't smell like a human, asking her if he can lick her face, but a boy stops him, and she reveals that she is helping him find his parents. Ragna knows that she is responsible for countless deaths, so he asks her why she's doing this, but she says that she doesn't need a reason to be kind. He is about to walk away, when Nebulum suddenly arrives, telling her that Borg is angry. He says that Ragna looks like a dragon hunter, but she tells him that Ragna is just sick because of the crowd. He realizes that he isn't so different, so she thinks about finding a place that isn't too crowded. Chimera and Golem continue to watch the recording, and Chimera wonders why Ultimacia resumed time when she decided to reverse it. Golem thinks that it's because her power has limitations, and Crimson agrees with him, saying she can't stop and rewind time simultaneously. Crimson reveals that this is her weakness, explaining that they can keep destroying her body, so that she will be forced to rewind time, and she will eventually run out of magic. Crimson thinks that Ragna can take her on, as she recalls the conversation she had with him, where he mentioned that their future selves were able to defeat Ultimacia, so she knows that they can win against her. Crimson mentions that Nebulum and Borg might interfere, so she orders her servants to deal with them. We see Ragna walking in an alley, as he continues to wonder if he made the right decision, knowing his future self would have attacked Ultimacia. He recalls Crimson's orders, knowing he was able to maintain his composure, but he wonders why he feels terrible. Slime reveals that he can contact Crimson, but Ragna says that he has found the target, and he wanders off on his own. Meanwhile, Crimson reveals that she's been giving Ragna subliminal messages, thinking she will be able to manipulate him in the future, because he's just a man with extraordinary powers. She is about to tell her servants about her plan, but Slime calls her, telling her that Ragna has betrayed them. Ultimacia helps the boy reunite with his parents, but she asks Nebulum if the boy's family is included in today's list, and he confirms this, saying they are scheduled to disappear. Ragna overhears this, and he continues to listen in, as Nebulum explains that he can make the people in his barrier disappear without suffering. Ultimacia thinks that the humans are doomed, but she wants them to be happy before they disappear. She adds that displaying the dragon's corpses was very effective, because it gave them peace of mind, but she realizes that Ragna has returned, and he tells her that her behavior makes him sick. He admits that he is angry, and his resolve to defeat the dragons is so strong that he is ashamed of himself for choosing to walk away. Ultimacia tells him that she doesn't understand what he's saying, but Nebulum's body crumbles as Ragna prepares for battle. She realizes that he's an enemy, so she decides to stop time, but he rushes to her, slicing her into pieces. She reverses time, restoring her body, but before she could do anything, he punches her with all his might, blowing her away. He continues his onslaught, preventing her from stopping time, so she tries to counterattack, but he launches her to the air and blows her away. She unleashes a fire blast, but he throws Silverine swords, stabbing her repeatedly. She struggles to keep up with him, unable to defend herself, and he tells her that the greatest kindness she can do for the people is to die by his hands. We return to Ragna's future, as Ultimacia stabs him, causing his body to heat up. But he doesn't want to transform into a dragon, so he pushes her away and takes his own life. The superior dragons think he's dead, wondering why he would reject her kindness, and she realizes that welcoming him into the bloodline is a mistake, saying he's better off dead. They decide to leave, and after a few moments, Golem and Slime arrive, thinking Ragna is a piece of trash. But Crimson inspects his body, realizing that he froze his heart to stop the transformation. She orders Golem to carry him to their base, saying she's going to revive him because she knows that he has potential. Back in the present, Crimson is furious because Ragna didn't follow her orders, but she realizes that her goal is to assess his powers, so she thinks that it wouldn't matter as long as he wins. Chimera informs her that he has the advantage, saying Borg and Nebulum are nowhere to be found. She notes that the barrier around the capital disappeared, so she thinks that Nebulum is dead, but she isn't sure about this, so she orders Slime to look for him. Golem sees Borg leading the castle, and Crimson orders him to fight Borg. He thinks he can't win, because he has no time to switch to his combat body, but she tells him that he just needs to buy time. We return to Ragna, as he delivers a devastating blow, shattering the wall with the impact. He continues to pressure Ultimacia, as she realizes that she doesn't stand a chance, but Borg tells her that he's going to fire his cannon, thinking it's the only way to defeat Ragna. But as he is about to fire it, he ends up getting ambushed, and we see that Golem was able to snipe him. Ragna continues his beatdown, but he is suddenly trapped in a barrier, as he realizes that Nebulum is still alive. He is struggling to maintain the barrier, but he is determined to protect Ultimacia. She is able to restore a portion of her body, and she summons dragons, using them to surround Ragna. But he unleashes his full power, and he is about to break the barrier, so Nebulum thinks about sacrificing his life to stop Ragna, but Slime suddenly eats him. The barrier shatters, but Ultimacia has already restored her body, and she is about to stop time. But Ragna charges with ridiculous speed, destroying her body in an instant. At that moment, she recalls how Kamui told her about her weakness, saying she takes too long to stop time, so she's going to have a hard time against powerful opponents. Ragna kicks her away, causing her to crash to the ground, and he proceeds to pummel her while she's down, shattering the ground with his strength. But she recalls how Kamui told her to use her trump card if she can't defeat her opponent, so she uses her ultimate skill, allowing her to rewind time for the whole world. Ragna finds himself in the middle of the crowd, but he can feel that something's wrong, knowing he needs to do something fast. Ultimacia stops time, revealing that her ultimate skill consumes a lot of magic, but she knows that she can't defeat him unless she uses it. She prepares to take him out, removing the people from the area, but she sees his hand move, causing her to panic. She thinks that it's impossible, because she didn't allow him to move and stop time, so she thinks that she's imagining things. Nebulum arrives, and he still remembers what Ragna did to Ultimacia, so he becomes angry, punching Ragna repeatedly. But she stops him, telling him to look at his arms, and he realizes that he's injured, as she explains that Ragna's blood can melt dragons, so they need to be careful not to touch it. She notes that Ragna's body is extremely durable, thinking the source of his power is within his body, and they need to destroy it with an incredibly powerful magic. So she orders Borg to contact the king, and tell him to fire his weapon at Ragna, thinking it should be strong enough to kill him. She tells Nebulum to protect the people with his barrier, and they are about to walk away. But Ragna gets back up, and he lunges at her, causing her to freak out, because she can't believe that he can move and stop time. She summons a firewall, as she wonders how this is possible, because aside from the king, the only people who can move and stop time are the people who share her blood. Nebulum tries to protect her with his most powerful barrier, but Ragna easily destroys it, and he unleashes a devastating combo, slicing her into pieces. She decides to rewind time, and Ragna continues to pursue her, as she starts to panic, wondering what she should do next, because she's running out of magic, so she thinks that she's about to die. But as he's about to strike her down, he suddenly loses control, and he realizes that his body is unable to keep up, because he's been using too much of his powers. He falls to the ground, and Nebulum escapes with Ultimacia, as the king fires his weapon, destroying the area with a magic beam. But we see that Crimson was able to save Ragna, telling him that he has lost, and she reprimands him for disobeying her orders. She notes that Ultimacia was confident in her powers, thinking she could defeat anyone, but Ragna proved her wrong, so she starts to question her capabilities. She tries to stop time, but Crimson activates a switch, which detonates the explosives she planted throughout the city, killing thousands of people. Ultimacia witnesses the destruction, and she realizes that everyone is suffering, causing her to fall into despair, because she wants everyone to die a peaceful death. Crimson tells her that there's only one way to save them, so she thinks about rewinding time, but Nebulum stops her, telling her that she will run out of magical power. Crimson realizes that her plan failed, and she decides to retreat. She meets Golem, who tells her that he has prepared a door for her, but she hits him, blaming him for their failure because he didn't plant enough explosives. She reprimands him, telling him that their plan would have succeeded if he did his part. But we learn that he planted more explosives, and he simply stopped them from exploding because he wanted to test her, revealing that he was worried that meeting Ragna has changed her. But he notes that she's still devious, so he concludes that he was wrong about her. She unlocks the door, but she tells him to stay in the city and monitor the area in his base form. He isn't happy to hear this, thinking he's being punished, but she tells him that she doesn't need him, knowing he was testing her. She enters her secret chamber as Nebulem feels useless, knowing he wasn't able to protect Ultimacia. He recalls how Borg told him about a dragon's maturity, which is the time that a superior dragon fully adapts to Ultimacia's blood. We learn that unlike the other members of their bloodline, Nebulem still hasn't reached maturity, but Borg tells him that he has the potential to become the strongest among them. However, he is starting to doubt himself because he can't protect Ultimacia. He is determined to become stronger, and at that moment, a mysterious energy surrounds him as he reaches maturity. He tries to look for Ragna and Crimson senses his powers, but she thinks that he can't find her in the chamber because she crafted it with her magic, thinking he isn't as powerful as her. She prepares to leave the country, saying she will begin preparations for the next few years. But we see a flashback where Ragna and Leo are hunting a dragon. Leo knows that it's been injured, so she decides to chase after it. Ragna is worried that they could be ambushed by a horde of dragons, but Leo tells him that the dragon could grow stronger if they allow it to escape. She thinks that it could end up killing more people, so she advises him to hunt his targets whenever the opportunity presents itself. Back in the present, Ragna regains consciousness, saying he won't leave until he kills Ultimacia. He knows that they're in a teleportation room, so he tells Crimson that he wants to go back. But she tells him that it's over, and he was able to put up a good fight, telling him that he needs to rest. But he becomes upset, reminding her that Ultimacia is still alive, so he isn't happy with the result. He decides to use his Silverine Bow arts, but Chimera restrains him, and Crimson becomes angry, explaining that he could damage her chamber. She sees a crack on the wall, and at that moment, Nebulem finds her through the crack, so he prepares to destroy her chamber. She tries to leave, but she realizes that the door won't open, knowing it's because of Nebulem, so she orders Golem to shoot him, hitting his head. But Borg throws a fireball at Golem, leaving a crater on the ground. Ragna unleashes his powers, allowing him to break free, and he ends up destroying the chamber. We cut to Princess Starlia, as the Major Isaac calls out to her, telling her that their teleportation circle was able to draw someone in. But he's not sure if they caught a dragon, so he wants her to see the person. We see that Crimson has been captured, revealing that she and Ragna were expelled from her chamber, but they ended up in an unexpected location, where they saw soldiers waiting for them. She appears before Starlia, who tells her that she's been captured by the royal army. The Mage Fu reveals that he drew a magic circle, but Ragna and Crimson suddenly appeared, saying he doesn't know how it happened. Starlia inquires about Ragna, so Isaac tells her that he's in no condition to talk, but they checked his blood sample, and they were able to confirm that he's human. He reveals that Crimson agreed to answer questions in exchange for Ragna's medical treatment. We learn that Starlia was born without arms, but her eyes can sense aura, and she has the power to move objects. She is known as a prodigy because she started killing dragons at the age of 6 and defeated an entire horde at the age of 8. She was able to craft silver equipment at the age of 10, and she has just turned 16, but she is now the commander of a special unit, which is equipped with the gear she created. Crimson notes that it's hard to deceive her, because her eyes can see changes in aura, allowing her to determine if someone is lying. She starts questioning Crimson, inquiring about her identity, as she notes that Starlia's unit was planning to use the circle to teleport away, because they are being pursued by superior dragons. She thinks that she might be able to work with them, because they have a common enemy, but she is worried about Starlia's eyes, thinking she may not be able to deceive her. She blames Ragna for the situation, but Starlia wonders why she isn't responding, and she realizes that Starlia wasn't able to sense that she was annoyed, so she thinks that she might be able to deceive her. She shows Starlia her dragon eye, as she introduces herself as a mage from the capital. We see a scene from 7 years ago, where Starlia approaches a general in the military headquarters, telling him that she's there to purge him. She stabs him to death, and everyone thinks that she has gone mad. But after further investigation, it is revealed that he was planning to overthrow the government, and she was able to discover his intention by simply looking at him. We return to the present, as Crimson notes that mages are sometimes born with strange physical features, so she thinks her dragon eye will make her story more convincing. She tells them that the capital is being attacked by dragons, as she controls her aura, trying to convince Starlia that she's telling the truth. She claims that Ragna is her servant, and she used teleport magic to escape the capital, but she somehow ended up in their magic circle. She thinks that she was able to convince them, but Starlia calls her a good liar. She knows that it's possible to control the fluctuations in aura, so she doesn't rely on it, revealing that she uses the aura's color to judge if someone is lying. She explains that liars have a red aura, and she sees the color of Crimson's aura, revealing that it's not red, but she finds it suspicious. She tells Crimson to hold her sword, saying she has taken a liking to her, so she has decided to give her a weapon. But as Crimson touches it, Starlia tells her to give it back, explaining that she can sense someone's true nature through silver. She mentions the Swordmaster Garm, saying his true nature is that he has become one with his sword, because of his intense training, and she finds this amazing, saying she wants to marry someone like him. She explains that a person's true nature is formed by life experiences, and she reveals that Crimson is surrounded by death, wondering how many people she has killed. Starlia orders her men to draw their swords, and Crimson begs Fu to help her, but he refuses, telling her that they trust Starlia's intuition. Starlia is about to strike her down, but Ragna saves her, saying it's his duty to defeat her. Isaac wonders where he came from, and he sees Garm lying on the ground, realizing that he has been defeated. Starlia loses her composure, because she sees Ragna's true nature, which is a sword with a man's body. Her soldiers become angry, thinking Ragna did something to her, so they attack him, but he easily defeats them. Starlia sees him as the perfect fusion of human and Silverine, thinking he's the strongest being alive. In a flashback, we see Starlia with her tutor Nazarena, who informs her that her engagement has been called off, but she doesn't care, saying she doesn't want to get married. Nazarena is upset, revealing that she will receive a reward if Starlia gets married, so she implores her to marry someone, but Starlia says that she will only marry a man if she completely falls in love with him. Back in the present, Nazarena notes Starlia's reaction as she stares at Ragna, thinking he's perfect for her. He tries to talk to her, but she becomes nervous, thinking she's being weird. Crimson tells him what to say, and he implores them to spare her, promising to obey their orders. They end up in a prison cell, as Isaac tells them to wait until Starlia decides what to do with them. Crimson attacks Ragna, wondering why he interfered with her plan, but he tells her that he doesn't want to run, because Ultimacia will kill more people if they don't hunt her down. Crimson reminds him that he lost, so she tried to save him, but he ended up destroying her chamber, and she doesn't know what happened to Golem and Chimera. He inquires about Slime, and she sees a part of him on Ragna's body. She uses it to revive him, but he is smaller than he used to be, and she blames Ragna for this, saying they just lost a valuable asset. She reveals that they're in an underground military facility, but she knows that they're not safe there, saying everyone is in danger. We see a group of civilians wanting to leave the base, and we learn that they are forced to stay there, because Starlia's unit knows about the radio broadcast, thinking the civilians would fall for the trap. Isaac wants to keep the presence of Ragna and Crimson confidential, knowing they are too strong for the unit to contain, so he doesn't want the others to know about them. But at that moment, the swordsmen Christopher and Shin ask him if Garm lost to Ragna. Christopher explains that they saw Garm crying in the corridor, because he is known as the strongest swordsman in the country, but he lost to Ragna, who isn't even half his age. Meanwhile, we see Starlia thinking about Ragna when Nazarena attacks her, causing her to crash to the ground. Nazarena tells her that she wasn't able to dodge it because she has fallen in love with Ragna. She admits that she likes him because he looks like a perfect sword, and Nazarena says that she's happy for her. She reveals that their unit is composed of the strongest fighters in the country, but she thinks that they're nothing without Starlia. She tells Starlia that her leadership brings them together, so she can't allow her feelings to prevent her from fulfilling her duty. We see Ultimacia talking to the Dragon God, saying she was defeated by Ragna, but she promises to accomplish her goal. God approaches her, taking the form of her sister, and asking her why she didn't save her. But Ultimacia wakes up, and she tries to stop time, but she's only able to maintain it for a few seconds, so she realizes that something's wrong with her. Starlia holds a meeting with her men, and Christopher reports that the dragons are behaving strangely because they aren't attacking and they seem to be preoccupied. Starlia finds this strange, but thinks it's a good opportunity for them if the superior dragons are busy. She asks her other mage Majorca about how long it will take to prepare a teleportation circle, and she mentions it will take a day. Starlia notes that their country is already lost, because all of their cities have fallen, so the only thing they can do is flee the country with the 1,500 citizens they managed to save. She is determined to survive no matter what, but Ragna and Crimson interrupt, and Starlia becomes flustered. Crimson offers to help them escape, noting that they don't stand a chance by themselves, because the difference in strength between them and their adversary is too much, saying they will all die if they don't work together. Starlia doesn't trust her, not wanting to be used by her, but when Ragna gets close, she covers her eyes and tells them to go back to their cell. Crimson reveals they are up against the superior dragon Zora, the 6th seat of the Winged bloodline. She tells them about his powers of chemical synthesis, which allow him to make drugs that can instantly kill or hypnotize his targets, and his army is also enhanced by his powers, making them several times stronger than normal. Starlia finds it hard to trust her, so Crimson decides to use Ragna, flustering Starlia once again. In a flashback to their cell, Crimson reveals that the base will be attacked by 10,000 dragons, led by 2 superior dragons, Zora and Tectra. She asks him if Starlia and her group appear in his future, and offers him a deal, saying she will use all her power to help them escape if he agrees to give up on Ultimacia for the time being. Ragna goes on to try and convince Starlia. He notes that although Crimson is despicable, her desire to kill dragons can be trusted, which is why he is working with her. Starlia does her best to resist his charm, but she ends up agreeing to work with them, although she claims she is just using them. She asks about the strange behavior of the dragons, so Crimson reveals how they just fought with Ultimacia in the capital, so all the superior dragons would be rushing back to the capital. We see Zora attacking Borg, punishing him for failing to protect Ultimacia. Ultimacia is still freaking out, but Kamui returns, bringing her the head of Michael. He mentions Michael said something interesting before he died, but Ultimacia isn't interested, saying it's in poor taste to find amusement in the final words of someone who suffered. Kamui goes on to show her one of Ragna's swords, and she immediately recognizes his power. He teases her with it, so she ends up using it to cut him. He laughs it off, and he tells her the reason why she has lost her power to control time, saying it's because she lost her confidence. She wonders what she can do to regain her power, and Kamui tells her she needs to forget her fear, pointing out how she was afraid of the sword at first, but thanks to her rage, she was able to forget her fear and grab it. But when she thinks about Ragna, she thinks it's impossible. Kamui tells her to order him to deal with Ragna for her, saying he can get rid of her fear, but she refuses to command him, saying it was her own failure, and their priority now is to destroy the country for their god. Kamui isn't satisfied with her response, pushing her down as he reveals he's pissed off that someone tried to kill his woman. Ultimacia beats him, saying she isn't his woman, and telling him he can do whatever he wants, but he says he wants to be ordered by her, saying he doesn't follow her because of her blood, and he doesn't care about their god, but he follows her out of his own volition, telling her she can be herself around him. She thinks about her duty, but Kamui continues to push her to reveal her true feelings. She ends up breaking down, and she orders him to bring her the heads of her enemies. They come out of her room, and the other dragons are glad she is okay, but Nebulum wishes he could be closer to her like Kamui. However, we see Kamui thinking about his final moments with Michael, who tells him that the Reaper will be coming for him, but this gets him excited, thinking there is finally someone who is able to give him a fight. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.